Welcome to the Mount Pleasant Podcast, featuring discussions and interviews about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant such a special place.
This is the Mount Pleasant Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Cleary, and all thanks to the great people of Mount Pleasant Magazine, I get the honor, the privilege of introducing you to Mount Pleasant, the people who make it such a special place to do business, to work, and even to live. We're introducing you to Mount Pleasant's best on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. Maybe it's been a dream of yours as a kid. You always thought, I'm going to be a rock star up there on stage, singing, playing, just being that person. Okay, maybe that was only me, but chances are not. But it's a dream. Has it passed you by? Well, maybe not. There's a man who, in some small way, perhaps, can make that happen. And we're talking with him today on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. I'm Brian Cleary. This is where the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine come alive. And today I'm joined by the owner of the Bach to Rock School of Music, Brad Dunnells, joins us. Brad, thanks so much for taking the time to share some stories and some information about Bach to Rock here. Let me start with this for you. In terms of, and I'm sure you've heard excuses, a lot of different people talk to you. Why is it, do you think, that someone doesn't take that first step and get started in learning a musical instrument?
Same thing, same reason why they don't do anything. Fear, right? Fear of failure. I'm not going to be good enough. It's going to be too hard. Whatever goal, imaginary goal that they had set for themselves, like you had said, people dreamed about becoming rock stars or being like on a big stage or something like that. They convince themselves that they'll never be able to get there. The reality is, anybody who's really good at something has to put a lot of time in. And sometimes that's daunting for people. But maybe your goal doesn't have to be headlining at Madison Square Garden, right? You know, maybe your goal could be, I'm going to learn a handful of songs and play them for my family, or I'm going to play them at the holidays, or I'm going to play in a little band with some people that are close to me. I think the nice thing about Bach to Rock is when students come to us and they say, I want to learn how to play a musical instrument, we spend a lot of time kind of drilling down and figuring out what that student's goals are. And then it's the teacher's job to get them there, right? So if the person says, I want to be a rock star and I want to be on, Madison Square Garden, there could be a plan for that, a long-term plan, right? But if somebody says, hey, I just want to learn how to play a couple chords, I want to be confident in this, I want to have fun, that's equally as important for that instructor to kind of figure out what that goal is and how to get that student there.
Well, let's follow up from there then. Highway 17, Mount Pleasant, right at the edge of the Mount Pleasant Town Center. Bach to Rock is there. So is there, first of all, an age? Some people may say, I'm too old to play an instrument. Are you only dealing with kids? What is it in terms of the makeup of demographic? In my head, and I would think in yours, but you tell me if I'm right or wrong, you can start at any age.
Correct. So we have students of all ages. The market for our school and our location and our services generally attracts kind of a younger set, right? So our largest student body would probably be students maybe age 7 or 8 to 15. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have early childhood classes for toddlers and, age 4 to 6. It doesn't mean that we don't have students that take individual lessons that are in their 60s and 70s, because we do. So everybody's welcome. We've got a space for everybody. We've got teachers that can accommodate all sorts of different learning styles, personalities, musical backgrounds, etc. So everybody's welcome, but as a general rule, we mostly attract younger learners, kids.
So I'm a parent. I have a son or daughter who I think may be interested, or heck, I'm just a 40-year-old guy and want to learn. Why should I come to Bach to Rock? What is it that makes you guys different?
So other than just offering individual instruction, which you can kind of get from anybody, anywhere, we have a community here and resources in-house that a lot of places don't have. One, there's certain instruments that we can offer that other places don't, right? We've got a lot of drum sets. A lot of places can't have, individual drum lessons because they're loud. If you're interested in performance, if you're interested in ensemble work, if you're interested in recording, all those things are in-house and available to you as a student. And as part of taking lessons here, you're welcome to take advantage of those, right? So yes, you can come here for individual instruction. Yes, you're going to get better. But when you want to take those next steps to bringing your music to life, we have those resources here, right? Which is the performance, ensemble work, recording, etc.
We're talking about making you a star. Well, probably not actually, but it could happen.
Sure.
I'm Brian Cleary. Today on the Mount Pleasant Podcast, we're talking with Brad Dunnells, the owner of Bach in Mount Pleasant. So, Brad, as someone walks into your store there, we've all seen the scenes in the movies where you walk into this music store and somebody's playing the guitar here, the drums there. Give me an idea. When I open the door to go into Bach, what am I going to see, feel, experience?
Sure. First and foremost, you're going to come into a welcoming, fun, and energetic lobby area. We've always got an administrator there to talk to anybody coming in off the street, to answer any questions they have. We always got an administrator there to handle the functions of the school, including safety, getting students in and out, making resources available to the teachers. You'll see a handful of people waiting around for their lessons, picking around on their guitars and their instruments. In the background, you'll hear drums, electric guitar, violin, clarinet, a cacophony of sounds coming from the back rooms where people are practicing. And I think the nice part about that is it brings so much life to the school and life to the lobby, right? It says this place is alive, this place is active, people are having fun here, people are learning, and you can feel it. You can feel the energy, you can hear it through the music that's seeping through the walls.
And so somebody walks in, one, do I need to own an instrument to become a student? And the second part of this is, do I need to be able to read music?
So you don't need to own an instrument at the beginning. However, the advice that I'm going to give you is, in a very short period of time, you're gonna want one, right? You're going to come in for instruction. You're going to sit down with the teacher. You're going to work over stuff, and that teacher's going to send you home with homework, right? So instruction happens in the classroom, and learning is going to happen for you at home with the time and energy that you put outside of lessons to come back and showcase what you've learned. Without an instrument at home, it's going to be a little difficult for you to progress very quickly. Now, if you're a beginner, if you want to try different things, if you've never done this before, absolutely, we'll book a handful of lessons. You don't need to have a drum set at home. You don't need to have a grand piano. When you're interested in buying something, anybody here is more than welcome to suggest places where you can rent those instruments, suggest affordable options for a beginner that are appropriate for a beginner and appropriate for your skill level, so you're not spending a fortune. But at some point, you're definitely going to want to have an instrument at home to practice.
And do I need to know what a B sharp is, or what circle to put, or what?
No, that is our job. That is our job to teach you music theory. Now, different instruments and different students are interested in different paths of instruction, right? A well-balanced lesson is going to have a little bit of technique, right? Showing you how to articulate on your instrument. A little bit of music theory, teaching you how to read and how these musical concepts come together. And then a little bit of repertoire, right? We want to find some songs and stuff that you're passionate about so that you're learning something that's going to reinforce your practice schedule. Different students have different goals in mind. Some people aren't interested in learning music. Some people want to learn chord forms. They want to learn one song. They just want to learn beats. That's okay too. But every teacher here is going to be encouraging you to embrace those three forms of instruction to make you the best well-rounded musician that you can become.
So, Brad, obviously you've dealt with parents and students and kids and people in music of all walks of life and all ages. So when someone comes to you, do they always know the instrument that they want to play, or do they sometimes come to you and you've got to actually set them up and point them in the direction?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways you can do that. Sometimes somebody will say, so-and-so is really interested in A, B, and C. And I say, that's great. Why don't we do a lesson in each? And at the end of that, you guys can go home and think about it and then come back to me and, tell me, what you'd kind of like to focus on. Sometimes we help people make those decisions based on their age, right? There are certain instruments that are a little bit harder for younger learners than others, right? So maybe the violin is a little bit more challenging for a young learner than, let's say, the piano, simply because the mechanics of, how you play it and your hands and stuff like that. So in some instances, if it's a young learner, I'll suggest maybe you should try this instrument first and then graduate to another instrument. Right? If you're 4 or 5, I might suggest piano is a good basis, treble clef, bass clef, linear, tiny keys, mother of all instruments. Maybe when you're 7 or 8, a guitar might be kind of a better next step for you once you've got those basic skills as a musician.
Podcasting has exploded in popularity, especially local podcasts. As of 2022, 62% of Americans have listened to a podcast. 38% have listened in the last month. 26% in the last week. The podcasting audience is booming with no signs of slowing down. Call the podcast hotline to be featured on these podcasts or to receive information about podcast marketing. Call 843-530-0403 or visit carolinapodcasts.com.
You're listening to the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
It was kind of true then, say learning the piano would help you if you wanted to play the guitar later on. There are some should we say, bass instruments that help you expand?
I believe so.
Terrific.
I truly believe that, yeah.
Thanks for joining me on the Mount Pleasant Podcast. I'm Brian Cleary. Brad Dunnells is the owner of Bach to Rock. It's a music school in Mount Pleasant, up on Highway 17 near the Mount Pleasant Town Center. Let's talk about you yourself for a second, Brad. If I said, hey, if the instrument that you pick out, what's your instrument? What's your go-to?
So my primary instrument is guitar and voice. When I was in middle school, I found out that I was not good at team sports. And so I started taking guitar lessons. I kind of found my tribe, right, which was, playing in bands and the fine arts. I stuck with that in high school, played in bands, and I was blessed. I went to a high school where being in the arts was cool, and they had a lot of resources for performing arts and theater and jazz band and orchestra and that kind of stuff. Went off to college. I majored in theater. I minored in music for a little while. Graduated, moved to New York, took my hand at acting and playing music in Manhattan. All the while playing in rock bands and stuff like that. Found out that the rock bands were giving me more work than the acting was. So I kind of focused my energy on that because I could get paid a lot faster. Playing pickup gigs on a Thursday night. Then I moved into the professional world, working in the arts as program directors, nonprofit fundraisers for arts organizations, advocacy and policy for nonprofit arts organizations. And then about 6 years ago, my wife came to me and said, hey, I read an article on a really interesting music school concept called Bach to Rock, where they teach lessons and build kids into bands. And she said, I think your background would really complement this. We should look into it. And here I am.
Tell me about the coolest gig or the best performance, or what sits in your mind that you personally had. What would that be?
Oh my. I played at the 930 Club in Washington, D.C. That was
nice.
Pretty cool. I played a host of venues in Manhattan in the late 90s that were kind of cool for bands coming up. I played a ton of, music festivals, including, the Guinness Fla Festival in New York and a host of other music festivals, up and down the East Coast. Yeah, we had a ton of fun.
Not a lot of people have the opportunity to get that experience to be on stage in front of a large crowd. Take a couple of seconds and share what that may or may not feel like.
Yeah, I think as far as Bach to Rock goes, the best thing about having that experience and what, all of our instructors and, our lessons try and prepare people for is when it comes time to perform, you are no longer in a sterile environment. You cannot control the external things around you, right? Things don't work, doesn't sound the same on stage as it did during rehearsal. Things are too loud, things are too quiet. So I think having someone with a strong performance background can really help young learners learn the tricks and the skills and the little things that we do to make sure that every performance is as good as possible. Because a lot of times when you get up on stage, not only are you nervous, but things don't feel and sound the way that they did in practice. And that can throw a young musician off, fairly quickly, unless they do it a lot.
Sometimes, maybe for somebody like me, the thought, hey, I'm going to play this guitar, I'm going to get lots of chicks, and it's going to be a cool thing. Maybe that's the point, maybe that's not. But can you talk a little bit about, because everybody I speak to who's a musical instructor will also talk about the importance and how learning to play an instrument makes you just a much broader individual and helps you in so many other ways.
I think so. I really do. I think music in particular, when you're doing ensemble work, that includes kind of a small band or of 4 or 5 people, or maybe a big band like a marching band or an orchestra. There's a lot of human dynamics you have to learn how to negotiate in making that thing a success. Bands fall apart all the time, typically because of personality conflicts, not because of musical conflicts. And, I think playing music with others helps refine those skills in problem solving and teamwork and team building, because you're all trying to get to the same place together. It might be that people have different pathways of getting there, but the show must go on, and it will.
Well, I think you're a good example of this, but a lot of people would think, hey, you play a guitar. We've all heard the stories of you're not going to make a living doing that. Maybe not. But there are some careers based on the music business that you and the instructors at Bach to Rock can help move forward for people, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So, certainly you can teach privately. The nice thing about that is you kind of do it on your own terms, right? You can come work for me, or you can teach for yourself or another music house. You kind of make your own hours, and it can be your passion and a little, side money, etc. You could focus on performing. You can play in bands. You can play pickup work, right? You and a acoustic guitar on, Thursday nights and in the back of the restaurant. A lot of schools now have what they did not have when I was in college, which is arts administration programs, masters in arts administration, right? How does this whole thing work, right? How does radio work? How does film work? How do records get made? Production, recording, all those things are available now to anybody that's interested in the career. You just need the skills, and you got to hang in there a long time, and be flexible enough to know that you might be piecing together a couple different careers to make one full-time job.
Brad Dunnells is our guest today. He's the owner of Mount Pleasant's Bach to Rock School there, Highway 17, right at the edge of the Mount Pleasant Town Center. And I'm Brian Cleary. This is where we're able to go in a little more depth than just the pages of Mount Pleasant magazine. We're talking about the music school. So, Brad, I'm a parent. I've got a son or daughter, and I want to get them involved. What's the first step that I need to take to get them involved with the program at Bach to Rock?
Call or email. Give us a little bit of background information, age of the student, what they're interested in. Do they have any skills set in that already, or another instrument that would complement? And tell us what kind of music they're passionate about. If you give me those 4 things, I can tell you who's a good teacher for you. And I'm already starting to think about what your path for instruction is, right? If I get the right teacher for you, it typically works fine just from there, right? If I get a teacher who's skilled in the musical styles that you're interested in, and your personalities match, that's when the magic happens, right? Then learning is fun, practice is fun, performing is fun, looking forward to lessons and coming in for lessons is fun, and that makes teaching and learning really easy.
And how important would you say discipline is in terms of, because you made mention of it, there's going to be homework involved here, but this is kind of fun homework, I would think, right?
Yeah, you like to think so. Practice makes perfect. Practice also makes permanent, right? So, the more time that you put in on your instrument on the front end, typically the quicker the success that you're going to have is. Typically, the more fun you're going to have at the beginning, and then typically the longer you're going to stick with it because you're not feeling frustrated, right? So most people, when they try something new, not only are they anxious about it, but if they don't find success quickly, they get frustrated, right? So if you put in a little bit of time at the beginning with your instrument, all these skills will come together quickly, and then you'll find the enjoyment quicker rather than the frustration of, why isn't this working as quickly as I would have hoped?
As an instructor, is maybe that your biggest challenge, that they pick up the guitar and they think, hey, in 15 minutes, I should be playing the Freebird solo. Doesn't really help that happen that way. So would that be the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, I would think so. The instructors send everybody home with homework. but it's ultimately up to the student to take responsibility for that. Now, some people don't want to put in 8 hours a day, and they don't want to be, Steve Vai or Stevie Ray Vaughan, and that's okay too. But in the beginning, it is important to put some concerted time and effort in to get those basic building blocks down so that you can learn quicker and have more fun with it.
As the owner of Bach to Rock, this seems like a labor of love to you. So tell me, what's the most satisfying thing that you're getting out of having these students come in and teaching people?
Oh, watching the students and bands come to performance. It's wild to watch somebody grow over the course of, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, watch their skill level and their confidence develop, watch them command a stage and do a great job, get that magic feeling that you get when you do something in front of people and you nail it, and then come back for more. That's what I love the most. I really love seeing people take it to performance and be thrilled with what they've accomplished.
Where in the Bach to Rock curriculum does it fall where I'll learn how to set my guitar on fire or smash it the right way on stage?
Yeah, we don't typically condone that at Bach to Rock sanctioned performances. My suggestion would be when you leave Bach to Rock and you start your own band and you're on somebody else's stage, you might consider that. But that is not in our curriculum as of yet.
So if I want to learn the drums,
Sure.
If I want to learn guitar, sure. Those kind of, or even because you mentioned marching bands, so you'll have some of those. You've just got a wide variety of instruments that people can begin to learn on.
Sure. The most popular would be guitar, bass, drums, vocals, and piano. Next would be stringed instruments, ukulele. We get some band instruments, but most people get that in school. So we don't get as many calls for that. So think rock and roll stuff, guitar, bass, drums, vocals, piano, strings, ukulele, and then kind of a handful of, other instruments.
And let me close out on this because you've mentioned it a couple of times, and I really want to highlight this. Everybody thinks of the music school, the music store as the place where you learn drums, learn guitar, but you've mentioned vocals a few times. There are some people who don't play instruments, but you can help coach them vocally.
Absolutely. So we offer, individual vocal lessons. So you would take that lesson the same way that you would take a lesson in piano or guitar. We have some ensemble opportunities. We have a class called Glee, which is a group vocal class. Think 4 or 5 students meeting for an hour. And then bands, of course, where, your instrument is your voice and you are the singer in the band. It is harder to attract vocalists. We're always looking for vocalists. So, if somebody says, I'm a singer and I want to perform, that's a double thumbs up for me to say, get this person, singing with others, get them performing. But yeah, so we offer ensemble opportunities, performance opportunities, and private lessons in vocal.
So if there is a vocalist who's watching the Mount Pleasant podcast or somebody, a parent that thinks, I would like to get my son enrolled in Bach to Rock, once again, highlight how they can get a hold of you and what their first step should be. Sure.
Call or email. Somebody will get back to you within the next 24 hours via either. Check out our website, bachtorock.com/Mount Pleasant. Give us that intro information, right? Age of the student. What are they interested in? Do they have any background or skills in this already? And what style of music are they interested in learning? Then when somebody reaches out to you, they're going to confirm those things. And then the next question is, when are you available on a recurring basis, right? So it might be that I have the world's best instructor, but he or she might not be available for you when you're available. So some of it comes down to, calendar availability, right? And then typically we'll field 1 or 2 available slots from you, the customer, that you could come in a recurring basis. And then we look at the calendar and we try and fit you in where that teacher has recurring availability. Our hope is that you come on a weekly basis, the same day, time, and teacher for consistency. We think a week's a good amount of time for you to get some homework, to go home and practice, to come back and showcase. And then that daytime and teacher is yours until you tell us you want to change it.
Brad Dunnells is the owner of Bach to Rock in Mount Pleasant. Brad, are you still performing? Have you been on stage or played at all lately? Anywhere people could see you?
A little bit. So I'm on the worship team with my church, Life Park Church, in Mount Pleasant. So you can see me there on Sundays for all 3 services playing lead guitar. Sometimes I'll do some side work with some of my instructors. I've got a wonderful vocal teacher, Sydney Corella. She and I play about once a month around town. Next, in May, we'll be playing for the Daniel Island concert series that they do on Thursday nights. I can't remember the date. And then actually the band that I started in college, can you believe that? I went back up and reconnected with them for St. Patrick's Day, and we played kind of a reunion, haven't seen you in a year, kind of, let's see if we can't fake it one more time gig. And that was a lot of fun. But
the reunion tour didn't come out of that, just a one time only.
Just a one time. And yeah. And then it takes us about a year to pull ourselves back together again and try it again.
This is the place to go. Music is just more than playing an instrument. It goes so far beyond that. And it's one of the things you can learn at Bach to Rock, Highway 17 in Mount Pleasant, right there on the corner of the Mount Pleasant Town Center. This is where the pages of Mount Pleasant Magazine come alive here in the Mount Pleasant Podcast. Brad, thanks so much for your time and education on all of this.
Cool. Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you for joining me, Brian Cleary. Grab your copy of Mount Pleasant Magazine. And again, thank you for listening and watching the Mount Pleasant Podcast.
Thanks for spending your time with the Mount Pleasant Podcast. Your community, your podcast. Listen to past and future episodes at mountpleasantpodcast.com.